The Seattle Kraken's winning ways are over, at least for the time being, with a pretty disappointing loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we're going to talk all about it and Lane Lambert, and also how much do superstars really matter for driving success in the NHL.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Zaiem alongside Glenn Dreyfuss, and we are with Davy Jones Locker Room, where we cover the Seattle Torrent and the Seattle Kraken. And welcome to Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Glenn, last night, the Kraken, having defeated a couple of weaker opponents. Florida on paper, they seem like, they're really strong, but they've had a lot of injuries and they were missing a lot of players. They were an easier opponent. And then Vancouver on Saturday, vibes were good. Bobby McMahon is doing Bobby McMahon things, but then reality set in. Tampa Bay, who, even though they had been struggling a lot since the Olympic break, still one of the best teams in the NHL, and they came to town, and boy, did they really show it.
Well, digging into the statistics for the Kraken, looking at the time on ice, it's interesting to note that Jared McCann, even though he scored, was given the third lowest playing time of all the forwards. Only the fourth liners, Jacob Melanson and Ben Myers, got less. By the way, the Melanson hit parade was back in town, 9 hits in just over 9 minutes of ice time. But back to McCann, if it wasn't an injury issue, maybe Lane Lambert was distressed with a bad decision McCann made in the first period. He had the puck in the neutral zone, but retreated into his own zone, trying to avoid pressure. Tampa stole the puck. Boom, the Kraken are behind 1-0.
Yeah, let's so we have a little visualization here. Then you can see number 19 is Jared McCann. He's got the blue line, and he turns it puck over, and then all of a sudden Tampa Bay turns defense into offense, and just like that, they got a wide open net with a cross slot pass. One thing that I noticed, and I thought this at the time because I've done so much work with expected goal models this year, building my own and analyzing what was wrong with the other ones, which has been a whole discussion in the hockey analytics community. But the expected goals on that one was like 3%, because the NHL does not provide data for cross slot passes. And so all it sees is that a shot was taken from that angle at that distance, and 97% of the time the goalie stops that. So when then you look at the expected goal share, the deserve to win meter or natural stat trick or any of those things, is drastically undercounting the expected goal share for Tampa Bay, because the conditions that created those goals, and we're gonna talk about more, were things that the NHL data API does not capture, and we're living in these expected goal models are, I don't know, they're like 90% accurate or whatever, but now we're living in that 10% where these are really skewed. So anyway, anyone who's looking at the deserve to win meter, like, that was kind of respectable. Those Tampa Bay numbers should be much, much, much higher.
And I'm going to set you up now to show some more of those visualizations. Keep in mind, the Lightning's 4 forward lines combined, a dozen skaters, only had 9 giveaways the entire game. McCann had 3 giveaways himself on the night, but he wasn't alone. McMahon, the other Kraken goal scorer, also had 3 giveaways. So did Matty Beniers. So did Chandler Stevenson. That's 12 giveaways among 4 forwards, eh?
That is the absolute worst team to give the puck over to, because they are relentless with their attacking mindset. And specifically Nikita Kucherov, which I'm gonna drop a hot take, or maybe a mildly hot take. But Nikita Kucherov has the highest hockey IQ of any player I have ever seen. I'm including Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid or Nathan MacKinnon. Some of those players are better, right? I'm not saying Nikita Kucherov is better than Sidney Crosby, but when it comes to understanding the game and processing what's happening, I have never seen anyone read the game the way Nikita Kucherov does. He has this really unique way of in basketball. They call it court mapping, where they can map everything out. And there's a superstar player for the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, and he has this supernatural ability where he understands where all the players are on the court, and he doesn't have to look, and so he can throw a no look pass to somebody before the defense can react. Well, that's much harder to do in hockey because you're constantly moving, and it's it's dynamic. It's not like, okay, I know these players are going to be in this spot standing there to catch the ball. Somehow, Nikita Kucherov is able to ice map. I don't know what the equivalent is of court mapping, but he can take a look, take a snapshot, and then he doesn't have to look again. And he can assess where people are going, what the positions are going to be, and then he can fire a pass there. It is just like, it's a superpower. It is an absolute superpower. It was awe-inspiring. Like, I mean, obviously not fun when it comes against the Kraken, but man, what an incredible player. And if you turn the puck over and Nikita Kucherov is on the ice, there's a good chance he's going to figure out how to make you pay, and make you pay really fast, because you turn over and it was just like, boom, and just defense turning the offense, and now it's over and the puck's in the net. Incredible, right? Way, way tougher than Vancouver or Florida.
Lane Lambert said after the game, I don't know if I've seen as many tic-tac-toe goals in an NHL hockey game before. He was saying it in a genuinely admiring way, and it seemed like Kucherov was in on every one of those. I mean, he had a hand in 5 of the 6 Tampa goals. This is why you have to play virtually error-free hockey against Tampa. They're top 4 in scoring goals. They're top 4 in giving up the fewest goals. And Seattle played anything but a clean game last night.
Well, coming up next, we're going to talk more about the turnovers, and we're going to look into more about what happened, and also hear from Lane Lambert and his disdain of turnovers. But also, interestingly, you would think he'd be really hopping mad after a 6-2 loss. Turns out not as displeased as you might think, and we're going to talk about why coming up next. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. But now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play-by-play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps. Trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered future commission merchant and swap firm. You've done rooftops and you've chased every happy hour, but how about one that's literally above it all? After 4 p.m., the Space Needles Pint and a Pie takes happy hour sky high, and just for $35 per person, you get entry, your choice of a sweet or savory tip-top pie, and a pint of beer, wine, or a non-alcoholic drink. Whether you're pre-gaming for the Kraken, warming up for Climate Pledge, or just here for the views, this is your night on another level. Pint and a Pie. Limited time offer, 21 plus only, minimum to purchase. Tickets at spaceneedle.com. Join the Everydayer Club now with code MARCH and get your first month free if you sign up before the NCAA tournament tips off tomorrow. You can compete in our men's and women's bracket pool on Discord. The winner in each will get $100 in Locked On merch, while the rest of us can commiserate in the members only chats as our brackets blow up. And as a member of the club, you get an ad-free version of this show. Again, it's all free for a month with code March at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, or you can click the link in the show notes. Usually, like when there's a hockey game, there's like one goal that comes off a turnover, and you're like, oh man, there was that one goal that was really bad or whatever. But the Tampa Bay Lightning, they were really generous, and they gave us 4 goals coming off turnovers. So we have to split it across 2 segments because we can't even fit it all in one. Lane Lambert, as you alluded to in the last segment, said never seen so many tic-tac goals, but also note the tone of what he's saying. And when we've had some bad losses before, he's been really short, he's been really angry. And here he walked in, and I was expecting angry Lane Lambert, and this is the Lane Lambert we got.
For the most part, it was a fairly even game. Our mistakes, were really catastrophic. Obviously, some really, really poor decisions. We gave them the goals, in my mind anyway, and they bury them. I talked about them. I don't know if I've seen as many tic-tac-toe goals in an NHL hockey game before, but, we go on the road here, and we've got to be better. Even in the first period, it wasn't like we were standing around or anything like we, sort of talked about against Colorado. We just made catastrophic mistakes, and that's kind of our MO right now. And if you look at it, the chances, they would favor them certainly, but not really by that much. We had our opportunities. So, I'm unhappy with the result. I'm unhappy with the turnovers. I'm not unhappy necessarily with the effort that we had. It's just we have to move pucks quicker. It's that simple. When you're playing top teams, they're on you, and so we've got to do a better job of executing plays. And when we don't, turnovers happen and they end up in the back of our net.
For Lane Lambert to say, for the most part, it was a fairly even game, and then add, our mistakes were catastrophic. Okay, I get what he's saying, for the most part, pretty good. But also, isn't that a little like Mrs. Lincoln saying, well, besides that, I really enjoyed the play?
I was thinking the same thing, the same quote exactly as well. I really struggle with this because on one hand, if you're a good coach and you're really coaching well, you're coaching process, you're not coaching results. So what you're saying is if you engage in these activities and you do the right thing, you do the right details, and you don't focus on whether the puck goes in the net or not goes in the net, and you just focus on, am I making the right decision at every time? Then in the long run, the results will take care of themselves and you'll win a lot more than you lose. If you get attached to the results, then what can happen is you can make a good play and then it results in a bad bounce, goes off your own teammate's skate or whatever. And you're like, oh, I did something bad because a bad thing happened. And so you get the wrong signals and the wrong feedback, which then makes you get away from the stuff that you're doing that was well, that was contributing toward winning. And so a good coach really preaches process over outcome. Now, if the entire game, the team plays poorly and they're making all these mistakes all the time, then they are consistently not engaging in the process, which is the ultimate goal that he wants the team to engage in. If instead they're engaging in a good process, with the exception of 4 different times, those 4 times are absolutely a problem. They're high leverage. I don't think he's discounting that. It was like, well, they gave up 6 goals. 1 was an empty net, so essentially 5. But yeah, we gave up 6 goals, and well, what are you going to do? That's just hockey. But I think it is important to make the distinction between the two. That it is one thing to consistently play poorly, and it's another thing to say, okay, you were playing really well, but then you had these lapses in judgment, because the way you address that is different. Because you address the lapse in judgment differently than, okay, you've been doing this wrong the whole game. So in that sense, I think it does matter, even though on the surface it's like, you played well. You gave up 6 goals there, buddy.
Well, to use a horse racing analogy, and Lane Lambert is a bright guy, and he knows you can't always go to the crop, or at least you shouldn't. Sometimes you need to give your team some positive reinforcement. So maybe he was also sending a message to his team. We can fix these things, and I still believe in you. And there's value in that too.
I mean, how much of it is also the fact that some of these goals, and let's pull these up. I mean, these are just some of these superhuman things, and sometimes you just get Kucheroved, and it's like, you know what? Superstars sometimes, and this happens in every sport, you can play well, you can have the right game plan, but if LeBron James is at the top of his game, if Sidney Crosby is at the top of his game, if Shohei Ohtani or any of these superstars, if they're at their best, guess what? They're going to do what they're going to do.
If I had a hat, I'd be tipping it now. Yeah.
So here we got a little, Kraken have the puck here. I have another visualization here. And then all of a sudden they turn the puck over and boom. Now, just a little, two passes and it's in the net, right? You have no chance to breathe. It's just like, oh, you made one mistake and here's what happened. Here, let's take a look at another one. This was a goal by Nikita Kucherov. Right. All right. This is just a defensive breakdown, and look how quickly they get the puck in transition. I mean, you look at this clip again. Let's watch this again. This clip starts, and the Tampa Bay has the puck in their own zone, and then all of a sudden it just moves off ice, and everyone is so far behind the play. Kucherov moving to the front of the net and getting in position. And all of these things are just processing so fast. And then finally, this one on Anthony Cirelli, it's just Kraken have the puck, and then they have it and they turn it over, and then now it's in the back of the net. And that's it. And they're turning defense into offense at an alarming, astonishing rate. But Kucherov was a key player in, I think, all but one of those goals. And
that last one, will you play that last one again, the Cirelli goal? Because Brandon Montour was trying to box out Cirelli in front, and he couldn't do it. It was a bad night for Montour. He was -4 on the night. Ryan Lindgren was -3. It was interesting to listen to Brandon Hagel of the Lightning, who had a 4-point night, 1 goal, 3 assists. He assisted on that Cirelli goal. To listen to him and the Lightning coach, John Cooper, after the game, they both used the same expression, that Tampa played on their toes. Did they ever? And you mentioned in the last segment, Tampa, in a way, was ripe for the taking. They'd been in a mini slump since the Olympic break. 3 wins in their last 10, and 2 of those victories were against the Toronto Maple Leafs, 3rd worst team in the Eastern Conference. But last night, it was like they said enough, and enough was too much for the Kraken.
Also, I can't talk about this game without at least mentioning the return of Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde, their beloved Kraken players who were traded last year at the trade deadline to Tampa Bay. And then Yanni Gourde welcomed the Kraken fans back by getting into a fight with Ben Myers, because that's what Yanni Gourde does, and that's who he is. And so it's just a little nostalgia. I don't know if I remember ever seeing like an opposing player get into a fight. You're like, oh man, I have fond memories of that guy fighting. You're like, oh, this is heartwarming. Okay, oh, Yanni Gourde's beating up on Ben Myers.
I want to say that Brandon Tanev did something similar to Shane Wright, but in general, your point is very well taken. They were being who they are.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just biased because I just between you and me, I was never a big Brandon Tanev fan, but I was and continue to be a Yanni Gourde stan. So I have. Yeah, Brandon Tanev, whatever. Yanni Gourde, ooh. But that's just my preference. I know there are a lot of people who would strongly disagree and who were very sad when he was traded. But also, he is having a really bad year. I don't know if you've seen how Brandon Tanev is doing, but he is might be the worst contract in the NHL this year. It's been a rough go for Turbo.
Is that Chandler Stevenson going?
Yeah, well, now the cap is going up so much, and so now we're approaching the point where at least the contract size is no longer hampering the Kraken's roster construction. Also, because they can't spend the cap room because nobody will sign here anyway, so it's not like it's an issue. But that's another topic for another episode or a previous episode, as we've covered. But coming up next, Nikita Kucherov with his 5 points driving Tampa Bay's success. And we wanted to talk about how much do superstars really drive the bus in success in the National Hockey League. Coming up next. College basketball is nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with the college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want with rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out, and then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Look at odds around your team if they are in season. You can go safe, you can go bold, or you can ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. One thing that the Kraken have been searching for their entire existence is a superstar. We thought that maybe Matty Beniers would be that player when they drafted him 2nd overall, and then he won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year, and that hasn't really manifested. Shane Wright seemed like maybe he was going to be the next NHL superstar when he was the presumptive number 1 overall pick for the 2 seasons heading into that draft. And then he fell to 4th somehow, and the Kraken took him. And it's like, wow, they got a generational talent at 4th overall. How lucky is that? And that hasn't manifested as well. Now the Kraken, they tried to trade for Artemi Panarin. They reportedly were in on Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, who aren't really quite superstars, but you take what you can get. Last night, there's no question that Nikita Kucherov is a superstar, and we saw the big difference between the two. And so the question is, obviously superstars, they help, but how much do they help?
Well, they certainly helped against the Kraken in 2 of the 3 last home games. MacKinnon for Colorado, 1 goal and 3 assists. Then Kucherov for Tampa last night, 3 goals, 2 assists. I mean, these guys are putting up video game numbers. Kucherov has 111 points. He's 2nd in assists in the league with 74. MacKinnon, 110 points, leads the league in goals with 45. These are MVP candidates who ran roughshod over the Kraken. And I'll tell you what, Zaiem, I'll let you have first pick. You take whichever the 2 of those 2 you want. I'll be happy with the other one.
I will say Nathan MacKinnon is my favorite player to watch in the NHL. And although if I were to go on a road trip, I would probably want to be in the same car as Kucherov. MacKinnon doesn't sound like he's a great hang. He seems way too intense and doesn't seem like a lot of fun. Kucherov at least has shown that he has like some sense of humor. So in I guess in that regard, but yeah, Kucherov with his insane hockey IQ and Nathan MacKinnon with his ridiculous twitchiness. And I mean, they're doing alien things, even by NHL players' standards. These are elite athletes, and you see these elite athletes relative to the other elite athletes.
Hey, what did you think of Lane Lambert pulling his goalie down 3? I know he had nothing to lose, but that's how Kucherov completed his hat trick.
I think that overall teams should be pulling the goalie more aggressively. Patrick Waugh accidentally stumbled on this. This wasn't because he was like an analytical genius. Yeah. I think he's just like, screw it. We're pulling the goalie with 12 minutes left to go in the game. And then it turned out that then that was an analytically savvy thing to do. And then we started seeing more goalie pulls. Alison Lucan, I know the Kraken Hockey Network analyst, when she was, I think this is still when she was covering the Blue Jackets, had done some work on goalie pulls and found that teams should be pulling the goalie much, much, much more aggressively. So I don't know if Lane Lambert was getting his an ear in his bug from the analytics team, or if that was just kind of the vibes. And he's like, you know what, we got to give a spark, or I got to try something. But I don't hate it, because also, I mean, what's the downside? It's like, okay, you lose by one more goal. Like, okay, who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's the goal differential doesn't matter in a tiebreaker or anything like that. It's you don't get the 2 standing points. And so, I mean, yeah, I guess it feels marginally worse to lose 6-2 than 5-2, but not really.
Well, you're exactly right. It doesn't matter, but teams used to care. They used to not pull their goalie. Well, first they didn't pull their goalie at all, and then when they did, they seemed more concerned with not giving up an additional goal than trying to score the equalizer. They wouldn't pull their goalie until well after the clock was under a minute. So no, I don't have a problem with it either, but I also think the chances of the Kraken getting 3 6-on-5 goals against Vasilevsky and the Lightning, I don't know what the analytics model would say about that, but I'm thinking the chances were pretty slim.
Of course they are. You're down 3 goals. What are you going to do? But at least you're giving yourself a chance. It's the thing you talk about is how teams would like try to protect the empty net is classic definition textbook playing not to lose instead to play to win. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You if you want to win, you want to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're down 3 goals. Well, you know what? Yeah, you don't have a big chance, but if you give up, you have no chance. And sometimes, not often, but every once in a while, a team does make those comebacks. And that's the thing we see in sports. Crazy comebacks do happen. Right. And it's not like, oh, no comeback has ever happened. That's how these things happen, is then the teams that don't give up, the teams that say, you know what, we have a sliver of a chance that we can hold on to, and we're going to nurture that, and we're going to lean into that. And then sometimes you get that miracle and you get that win and you get that 2 points, and you don't get that if you say, oh, you know what, it's Andrei Vasilevsky, we got no shot. We're just going to give up. And then those teams, they never get that. And especially in this season, where 2 points could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, the team giving up and saying, you know what, we're not going to try anymore, is, I think, to me, more unacceptable. And I love that. Now that I think about that and talking through, I actually love it. I'm all for it. Lane Lambert plays to win. He doesn't play not to lose. That has not always been the case for the Kraken. And he has talked about it and he acts it. And it is maybe my favorite thing about his mentality.
Well, you convinced me too, because maybe this is Lambert sending a message to his team. I haven't given up on you. I haven't given up on this game. I haven't given up on this season. And I'm going to pull out all the stops, even if it's a low expectation of success. So that maybe that was sending a message as well as trying to win the game. And you convinced me. Before we go, I wanted to also mention, I was glad that you had brought up Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand, their first return visits to Climate Pledge Arena since being traded at the 24 deadline. My favorite reunion moment was when Shane Wright gave Yanni Gourde a big hug. Unfortunately, the game was in progress at the time, so it was a holding penalty. But it does point out one of the things, on top of every other reason it's good to have a superstar, is that it allows other players like Bjorkstrand and Gourde, to be slotted where they should be, rather than expecting too much of them. And that's also how you win. In a very small way, not equating this at all, but acquiring Bobby McMahon allowed Lane Lambert some flexibility, moving Jared McCann off the first line to the second, where that line now has an additional scoring threat.
Well, I do want to get to one last thing, because you did promise that we would actually talk about how much superstars matter, and we've been dancing around that some. So first of all, the greatest player in the history of hockey clearly is Bobby McMahon, because he is on pace to score like 120 goals this season. He had another one against Tampa Bay, one of the 2 goals. So let's take a look at it, because I just throw some happy some. See, it was right after the goal, they win the faceoff, and then Bobby McMahon, he just now Tampa Bay turns the puck over, and now Seattle's the one that's putting in the back of the net. So take that, John Cooper.
Or you hear that cash register sound? That's the price going up on Bobby McMahon's contract. He's a free agent at the end of the season. And boy, it sure looks like Jason Botterill needs to keep him in the fold.
I looked at the last 5 seasons plus this season, and I looked at the top scorers on ice expected goal share, and then also the team points percentage. So essentially how well they do. And what we see is that there is a strong relationship between how good your top scorer is, especially 5-on-5, and how well your team does. In fact, 44% of a team's success is driven by the dominance of their best player 5-on-5. So even though one player is 1/20th of the roster, they are constituting in the aggregate almost half of the success 5-on-5. This really underscores a couple of things. First, if you've ever looked at the draft value charts, and as we get closer to the draft, you can see the gigantic drop off in the value between the first pick and the second pick, and the second pick and the third. And then like once you get to the 5th pick, it's just like, it's a dramatic drop off. The talent disparity in the NHL at the very, very top is really big. And those talent disparities are the things that disproportionately drive success. This is why the Kraken desperately want a superstar, because it is the thing that has such an outsized effect on the team's success. They're worth the money that you pay for them.
Mhm.
You know, if they're driving that much of your winning, then they should be getting, a larger portion of the cap, if you think about it. But, so maybe Artemi Panarin at $14 million wouldn't have been a poor deal. I that's kind of hard for me to sit with as I say it out loud, but maybe it is. And,
Yeah.
but it's undeniable that you're not going to get very far consistently if you don't have a superstar. Even in Vegas, when they had all their depth and they were rolling 4 lines, they knew, and they said, you know what, we still have to go out and we have to get Jack Eichel. And they made the big trade to get him. And then that was the thing that got them over the hump. So critically important. And we see it every time we see Nathan MacKinnon or Nikita Kucherov or Connor McDavid or, Leon Draisaitl or any of these mega stars that are coming in. And you look at that and say, man, I hope someday we can have that, because right now, I love Jordan Eberle, and I think Jared McCann is, he's a very good player, and Bobby McMahon is real fun, but they don't have that guy yet. And it is so important that they get him.
I know we're going overtime, but did you see, since you mentioned Leon Draisaitl, did you see the oddest quote of the NHL season from one of the Kraken's division rivals, Stan Bowman, general manager of the Oilers, who suggested that the injury to Draisaitl could be a blessing in disguise? He was trying to indicate that Draisaitl will be more rested for the playoffs. But of course, first the Oilers have to make the playoffs. And I'm not so sure how much Leon and his teammates find a blessing in losing a guy who has 97 points in 65 games. Imagine if Jason Botterill had said that about Jaden Schwartz, who's out indefinitely after taking a skate to the face.
I will say something. I was having a conversation with a front office executive for a team that was having a ton of injuries, and they were a playoff team and they had aspirations of being a cup contender, and that they just had so many injuries during the regular season. And they said, you know what? It is kind of a blessing in disguise, because number one, our star players are being rested. Number two, they had more information on their farm system, on their AHL system, and so they could make better decisions heading into the trade deadline. And this is something that was just expressed privately. And it's like, yeah, of course we would prefer not to have our players injured, but running out of gas in the playoffs is a thing. And if we can survive this, and if we can get to the playoffs, and they were expecting most of their players to be healthy by that point. These were like, 6-week injuries, but like they're all happening all at the same time kind of thing.
Well, here's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Load management in the NHL.
Oh, it's something I have a lot of opinions about and pretty passionate about. So, yeah, we'll leave it there. And because we get to do this every day, Glenn, and that means that we get to do this tomorrow. That does it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Kraken. We will be back tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Kraken so you get all the latest episodes. You can find us at Davy Jones LR on all social media platforms or at DavyJonesLockerRoom.com, where we do print coverage of the Seattle Torrent and the Seattle Kraken. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Kraken ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make this one of your 2 daily listens. For Davy Jones Locker Room, I'm Zaiem.
And I'm Glenn Dreyfuss.
And we'll see you tomorrow.